The Prenup Chronicles, Love and Money, Part 3. Chapter 7. Negotiation and Compromise. The air between them was thick with tension, the kind that made every word feel like a landmine. Emma sat at the dining table, a stack of legal documents in front of her, her laptop open to a spreadsheet she'd titled Fair Terms. Jack sat across from her, his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up, looking more like a CEO in a boardroom than the man she'd fallen in love with. "If we're doing this," Emma said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her, "then it needs to be fair. Not just for you. For me, too." Jack nodded, his expression unreadable. "I get that. What are you thinking?" Emma took a deep breath and slid her laptop toward him. "I've drafted some terms. First, if we have kids and I take time off work to raise them, I want compensation for lost career opportunities. Second, if we divorce, I keep the apartment, regardless of whose name is on the deed. And third, I want a say in any major financial decisions that affect us as a couple." Jack scanned the list, his brow furrowing. "The apartment? That's non-negotiable," she interrupted, her voice firm. "It's my home, too. Or are you saying it's just yours because you pay the mortgage?" Jack held up his hands in surrender. Okay. The apartment is yours if it comes to that. But the financial decisions thing, that's tricky. The company's board has certain expectations." Emma crossed her arms. "And I have certain expectations, too. Like not being treated like a second-class citizen in my own marriage." Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not trying to treat you like that. I need to protect the company. It's not just about me. And I need to protect myself," Emma shot back. "Because right now, it feels like you're the only one with a safety net." The room fell silent, the weight of their words hanging heavy in the air. Jack reached for her hand, but she pulled away, her walls firmly in place. "Look," he said finally, his voice softer now, "I don't want to fight. Let's find a way to make this work. For both of us." Emma hesitated, then nodded. "Fine. But I'm not backing down on the kids clause. If I'm putting my career on hold to raise our family, I deserve to be compensated for that." Jack nodded slowly. "Okay, we'll add it in, and I'll talk to the board about the financial decisions thing. Maybe we can find a compromise." It was a small victory, but it felt like progress. Over the next few weeks, they continued to negotiate, each conversation a delicate dance of give and take. They discussed spousal support, property division, even how to handle joint accounts. It wasn't easy, but slowly, they began to find middle ground. Then one evening, as they were finalizing the terms, Jack's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his face paling. "Who is it?" Emma asked, her guard instantly up. "No one," Jack said quickly, shoving the phone into his pocket. But Emma had already seen the name, Liam. Her stomach churned. "What does your brother want now?" Jack hesitated, then sighed. "He's got some concerns about the trust fund. He thinks we need to adjust the 2.5% clause." Emma's heart raced. "Adjust it how?" Jack looked away, his jaw tight. "He thinks it's too generous." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. "Too generous? Jack, this is our marriage, not his. Why does he get a say?" "He doesn't," Jack said quickly. "But the trust fund is tied to the company, and if we don't meet certain conditions..." Emma's eyes narrowed. "What conditions?" Jack hesitated, then pulled out his phone and showed her an email from Liam. Subject: URGENT, Trust Fund Conditions. Body: Jack, if you don't revise the 2.5% clause, the trust fund defaults to me. Call me ASAP. Emma's blood ran cold. "You've got to be kidding me." Jack looked at her, his eyes pleading. "I didn't know about this, Em, I swear." But the doubt had already taken root, and the compromise they'd worked so hard to build suddenly felt like a house of cards. Chapter 8. Legal Drafting. "You'll fix it?" Emma's laugh was sharp, bitter. "Jack, this isn't a glitch in your app you can patch. This is our marriage. And right now, it feels like you're more worried about your brother's approval than us." Jack's jaw tensed, but before he could speak, Greg, his ever-composed lawyer, cut in first. "Let's not get emotional. This is just a contract, a safeguard." Emma's temper flared. A safeguard for who exactly? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like it's only protecting him. The room fell deathly silent. Jack's gaze met hers. Pleading, searching. Emma, please, just let's talk. Let's figure this out. But Emma was already on her feet, her chair scraping against the floor. I need air. She didn't wait for an answer. She grabbed her bag, stormed out, her heart pounding. The hallway was cold, sterile, buzzing lights, shaky breaths. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A text from Priya. Did you sign it yet? Her fingers trembled as she typed, Not yet. Something's wrong. Before she could hit send, the conference room door creaked open. Jack, pale, tie loosened, desperate. Emma, he said, his voice raw, please, just talk to me. Her lips parted, but then another buzz. This time from Victoria. Call me. Now I've found something you need to see. Emma's pulse spiked. She looked at Jack, then back at her screen. Something was wrong. Very wrong. She took a step back. I have to go. Emma, wait. She didn't. Chapter 9. Second Thoughts. The night before the signing, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay there staring at the ceiling, the prenup pressing down on her chest like a stone. The apartment was silent, too silent, and every passing minute made her thoughts feel louder. Beside her, Jack slept soundly, his breathing steady and calm, as if the ground beneath them weren't about to shift. She slipped out of bed, her feet cold against the hardwood floor. The prenup sat on the coffee table, its pages perfectly stacked and waiting. She picked it up, her fingers lingering over the bold title, Prenuptial Agreement, Final Draft, Final. The word weighed on her like a heavy anchor. She flipped through the pages, eyes skimming over the clauses they'd fought over. The 2.5% clause, spousal support, provisions for kids. It was all there in black and white. But was it enough? Her phone buzzed, startling her. It was a text from Priya. You okay? Big day tomorrow. Emma hesitated, then typed back, I don't know. What if I'm making a mistake? Priya's reply came instantly. Only you can answer that. But trust your gut. It's usually right. Emma exhaled slowly, setting her phone down. Her gut was a storm of emotions, fear, doubt, hope, love. How was she supposed to trust that? Footsteps. Jack. She turned to see him standing in the doorway, messy hair, rumpled shirt. Couldn't sleep. She shook her head, clutching the prenup to her chest. I keep thinking, what if this ruins us? What if it's always there, hanging over our heads, reminding us we didn't trust each other enough to just be? Jack crossed the room, sitting beside her, the warmth of his presence grounding her. He took the prenup from her hands and set it on the table, his touch gentle, then reached for her hand. This isn't about trust, he said, voice steady. It's about being smart, about protecting what we have. I love you, Emma, more than anything. And I want to spend my life with you, but life's messy. Things happen. And if they do, I want to know we're both taken care of. Emma studied him, searching for the man she fell in love with, the one who proposed under the oak tree, who held her hand through every storm. He was still there, buried beneath the lawyer speak and the spreadsheets. What if it's not enough, she whispered, her voice small. Jack squeezed her hand. It's not about the prenup. It's about us, the life we're building. The prenup is just paper. It doesn't define us. His words soothed her frayed nerves, but they didn't erase the doubt. She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. Promise me, she said quietly. Promise me that no matter what happens, we'll always fight for us. Not for the money, not for the clauses, for us. Jack kissed her forehead. I promise. For a moment, the weight lifted. Hope flickered. Maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. But then, as they sat in the quiet, her phone buzzed again. A text from Victoria. We need to talk. There's something you need to know before you sign. Emma's heart plummeted. The weight crashed back. Chapter 10. The Signing. The law office was a cold, clinical world of sharp edges and sterile light, glass walls, polished floors, and a conference table so shiny Emma could see her reflection staring back at her. She sat stiffly, her hands gripped tightly in her lap, the weight of the moment pressing down on her like a storm cloud, suffocating every breath. Across the table, Jack fidgeted with his pen, his usual confidence replaced by a jittery energy that made the air feel thick with tension. Victoria and Greg sat beside them, the silent reminder that this was no longer just a personal decision. It was a legal one. The prenup lay at the center of the table, its pages neatly stacked, the 2.5% clause highlighted in yellow, a glaring testament to the battles that had led them here. "This is it," Greg said, his voice cutting through the silence. "Once you sign, it's official. Any last questions?" Emma glanced at Jack, who flashed a small, reassuring smile. She wanted to believe in that smile, the promise it held. But her stomach twisted into a knot of nerves, her thoughts scattered. "No questions," Jack said, his voice steady but thin, as he picked up the pen, hovering it over the signature line. Emma froze, her fingers trembling as she reached for her own pen. Her mind flashed to the sleepless nights, the arguments that had almost torn them apart, the doubts that had haunted every step. And then, the text from Victoria the night before. "There's something you need to know before you sign." The cryptic warning she hadn't been willing to explain over the phone. "Emma?" Jack's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts, his eyes searching hers, looking for reassurance. She took a breath, steadying herself. Her pen hovered just above the paper. I need to know this is the right choice. For both of us." Jack reached across the table, his hand warm and grounding. "It is. I promise." For one fleeting moment, the room faded. There were no lawyers, no contracts, no clauses. It was just Jack and Emma, the way it had always been. She nodded, a fire of resolve sparking within her. "Okay." Together they signed their names, the scratch of their pens the only sound in the room. When it was over, Greg scooped up the documents with an unsettlingly wide grin, his voice too practiced, too formal. "Congratulations," he said, standing to shake their hands. "You've just taken a big step toward protecting your future." Emma forced a smile, but inside, her thoughts were in turmoil. Protecting their future? Or had they just sealed their fate? As they left the office, hand in hand, the weight of their decision settled on her like an anchor. The 2.5% clause was no longer a distant concept. It was real, binding, and part of their story now. "We did it," Jack said, squeezing her hand. "I know it wasn't easy, but I think it's going to make us stronger." Emma nodded absently, but her mind raced. Something was off. The prenup wasn't just a safety net. It felt like a trap, one they couldn't escape. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her from her thoughts. She pulled it out, the message from Victoria, sending a chill through her veins. "Call me as soon as you can. It's urgent." Emma's stomach dropped. She glanced at Jack, who was already hailing a cab, oblivious to the storm inside her. "Everything okay?" he asked, noticing the hesitation in her step. "Yeah," she lied, forcing a smile. "Just work stuff." But as they climbed into the cab, her mind was running wild. What did Victoria know? What had she uncovered? And more importantly, what had Emma just signed away? Epilogue. 20 years later. The house was peaceful, wrapped in the soft hum of the dishwasher and the occasional creak of the floorboards settling, as if the house itself had taken a deep breath and relaxed. Jack and Emma sat at the kitchen table, the flickering light from a candle casting a warm, golden glow over their faces. A half-empty bottle of wine rested between them, the remaining contents offering an invitation to savor the evening just a little longer. Their children were asleep upstairs, the echoes of their laughter still lingering in the air, like a sweet melody. 20 years. It felt like both a lifetime and a blink, a strange paradox of time. So many things had changed. So much had stayed the same. "To us," Jack said, lifting his glass, his smile crinkling the corners of his eyes, the kind of smile that had softened and deepened with age, but still held the same spark that had captivated her so long ago. "To us," Emma echoed, clinking her glass against his. They sipped, and for a few moments, there was only the sound of their quiet breaths and the soft clinking of their glasses. The silence between them was comfortable, no longer filled with uncertainty or unspoken fears, but a peace born of years shared. Years that had taught them how to fight for each other, how to understand one another in ways that words could never quite capture. The prenup, once a looming shadow, was now a relic of the past. It had become a part of their history, something they shared at dinner parties with laughter and a sense of irony. They spoke of it as if it had never truly been a threat, just an obstacle that had, in some strange way, brought them closer. "Remember when we signed that thing?" Jack asked, his voice light with the humor of hindsight. "I thought you were going to throw the pen at Greg." Emma's laugh was soft, warm, and full of nostalgia. "I almost did. That man had the personality of a spreadsheet." Jack chuckled, his hand reaching across the table to take hers, his touch grounding her in the moment. "And now look at us. 2 kids, a house, a life, and not a single clause invoked." Emma's smile softened as she met his gaze, and for a moment, she could almost hear the sound of their younger selves, naive and uncertain, asking the same question they had asked that day. Can we make it through this? The years had been kind to Jack. His hair, once dark, was now streaked with silver, and the lines on his face had deepened, each one a testament to the laughter, the tears, the stories they had written together. But his eyes, those eyes, remained the same, bright, steady, full of the love that had anchored them through the storms they had weathered. "Do you ever think about it?" she asked, her voice quiet, as though the question was one she had been carrying for years. "The prenup, I mean." Jack's thumb traced slow, soothing circles on the back of her hand. His gaze never wavered from hers. "Sometimes," he said after a long pause, "but not in the way I used to. Back then it felt like this huge, looming thing. Now it's just a footnote, a reminder of how far we've come." Emma's gaze wandered to the photo wall behind him, her heart catching at the sight of the pictures that had become a visual timeline of their life together. There were family vacations, birthday parties, lazy Sundays in the backyard, each photo a silent testament to the love they had built. She stopped at the one of their wedding day. Jack's tie was slightly askew, and Emma's veil fluttered in the wind. Her smile uncertain but full of hope. They looked so young, so innocent, so ready to begin their forever. "Do you think we would have made it without it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack tilted his head, considering the question with the weight of 2 decades behind it. "I don't know. Maybe. But I think it forced us to have the hard conversations, to really look at what we wanted and what we were willing to fight for. And in the end, that's what mattered." Emma's eyes welled with tears, but she blinked them away, a soft laugh escaping her lips as she squeezed his hand. "I'm glad we fought." "Me too," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. "Every single day." They sat there, the quiet stretching on. A comfortable and familiar silence. The 2.5% clause, the thing that had once seemed so important, had never come into play. Not because the prenup had failed, but because their love had succeeded. Their love had outlasted the fear, the doubt, and the hesitation. It had weathered every storm, every late-night conversation, every moment of fear about what the future might hold. And in the end, that was all that mattered. As the candle burned low, flickering in its last moments, the night stretched on, and Emma found herself smiling. They had built something beautiful, something real, and no piece of paper could ever define that. No matter what the future had held or what it might still bring, they had found their way through it, together. And that was a story far more powerful than any contract. They had survived, not because of a prenup, but because of the strength of their bond. It had been tested, stretched, and pulled in ways they never could have predicted. But in the end, their love had endured. And now, 20 years later, they had everything they needed. They had each other.